So good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I think our technical issues has been solved. Today, I'm going to talk about the legally compliant DAO for the next 15 minutes. And please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Qianchen, and my friends call me Q. I'm working at Validity Labs as a DApp developer. We're a team of 18 based in Zug, doing some blockchain education, also DApp development, as well as research. If you're interested in our messaging protocol, there will be a talk later as well. So I'm going to repeat a story first, a story that all of you, I'm pretty sure that you know. So once upon a time, there's a brilliant idea trying to make a new new form of collaboration and governance on chain, and then came up with a white paper in 2016, successfully sealed $150 million fund, and together with the name of the product called the DAO. And you all know the consequence, well, the result of the end of the story. Well, may the fork be with you. And then we also learned something, including don't claim the victory too early, and then complexity is always the enemy of the security, as well as it's always better to have friends in the legal system. But let's be serious. So what are the main problems that we're seeing here, and what are the takeaways that we can learn from that? So for a developer, the least thing we want to see is actually to see that our product got hacked. But the worst thing could be receive calls from lawyers every day. So it gives us, actually the lengthy paper from EthCC gives us another perspective to look at our product in a legal way. So what could be the problems that we run into in the view of a lawyer? So first of all, it could be the liability. The Ethereum account does not equal to the juridical person, as you may already know. That's the reason why we have a lot of researches on how could we incorporate identities into our dApps. Also, based on the activities you have of your product, you might just wake up on another day, have another pile of documents you need to fill because you need to fulfill some license requirements, including Bank Act, some liquidity ordinance. And also, how can we deal with the problems that we face later if any kind of activities or proposals we have in the DAO got failed in the execution, so meaning the link between what happens in the digital world with the real world. Not to mention other lessons we also learned about the fairness, the gamability of the design, and the technical part, like the security, which is one of the biggest lesson we have here. So the question comes to a long one, but it comes to how can we run this disruptive and infant technology concept together with the law, with all the clauses and articles that have been existed for decades or even for centuries. There are mainly two options. First one is to adapt our law system so that they accept our new technology. There are people working on that. I mean, for a very democratic countries, we expect to see the implementation at least in the next decades. But another way around, another workaround is actually to see if it is possible to adapt our application to fit into the legal framework. And that is the reason why we came up with this experiment together with the leading law firms in Switzerland, because we want to experiment the second approach. How can the DAO, the concept of DAO, fits into the legal framework? And we actually pick up the association instead of a general term of organization to start our experiment. Why association? It is not only because the association is one of the simplest form of organization that I could find with the least clauses in the Swiss civil law, but also because it does have a lot of challenges for the for-profit or non-profit organizations or associations. They want to seek disruptive solutions for, especially digitalized solutions for them. And our project, our experiment, called DAA, which just in short for Decentralized Autonomous Association, together with our partner MME, we are working on this bare minimum MVP that could be fully, completely legally compliant. I just give you a general overview of all the features we have. So first of all, there are members in the association, so we include the membership management. And let's just go through it. We also have the association management, being able to rebrand the association if necessary. We also allow members, like eligible members, to create and vote for proposals, settle all the proposals upon the criteria we set up upfront. And importantly, we have this form of general assembly, which is actually required by the law. And last but not least, we also have the opportunity to interact with other digital associations or other accounts on the chain. And I'm going to dive into some of the key features that enables us to be legally compliant. The first one is the role management. It seems to be easy that we are just managing a list of accounts, but actually there is a fundamental difference from our project to from other DAOs or generalized DAOs, because these accounts are managed in the way that, for example, we need a delegate, which is a president of the association. But for other DAO applications, most of them, if you held a token, then you could be a member. You could have different roles. But we don't use the token-based system to manage the association in order to be compliant with the law. And also, because we have the special rules of one delegate and other members are managed based on their account address, we need also at least two whitelisters to basically cope with the role management. And when we want to have these special roles being incorporated into our association, we actually need a voting and election mechanism, which is quite funny because we use this continuous bellowing. Basically, it means that we do not allow tie in the association. So if I want to be a delegate and then my friends as well, then we constantly run into ties, and then actually this process will be endless because we do not allow this parliament style of management. And another example of how we manage the proposals. As I already mentioned, eligible members could create and vote for proposals. And then we also reinforce the responsibility by asking them enforcing them to join in this General Assembly, which could be happened on-chain or off-chain. And other than that, I think you already seen the voting flow could be similar, which is actually similar to other DAO-style applications that we create proposals, and then we vote upon the proposals, and then we conclude the proposals. But there are some specific proposals that requires a specific voting period or the period of intervals between these votes due to the restriction of the law. And one very interesting feature is that it's the dissolvence of association when it's necessary. So normally, if a smart contract deployed on chain, it lives forever on chain. But for association in the real world, the problem is that we could clear a bankruptcy of any kind of entity, and we also could be able to just dissolve the association. Therefore, we need to manage the edge cases of handling the dissolvence if at the same time, some management of the accounts of the membership, this part has some changes and there are some conflicts. And the lower part of the slide actually shows the articles, the clauses that our legal partners prepared just for this project. We can also go through some detailed processes, including how a member could be added into the association, which is actually quite lengthy. That we need, well, this person for sure needs to be voluntarily wants to join into the association. Hopefully nobody forces them. So by making such a kind of request, go through a couple of checks that you probably cannot see clearly, but I'm going to distribute this slide later on Twitter. So this person needs to, first of all, request a membership, and then the magic whitelisters will come and check these proposals, such kind of membership request, not only once, but twice. And then finalize the membership request by paying the annual fee that you most probably already seen. Like if you are part of a club or association, you're gonna have to do the same. So we just move what's happening in the real world on the chain. And to make a proposal, also we're gonna have like basically 3 steps by initiating your proposals, having multiple checks of the eligibility, the duration, and the initiator, whether it's eligible or not, and allowing other members to vote on the proposals. And for some certain kind of proposals, like voting for the new delegate, it actually needs to be happened during the General Assembly. But for the rest, we could just let it go according to the conditions that we put up front. And the solution architecture of our project, although it's like a bare minimum per experiment that we're doing, but it also involves quite kind of like different functions, like 26-ish smart contracts in here. Unfortunately, this project is not complete yet. We still have a lot of unclear questions. Just give you a gist of how it goes. Concerning the GA, concerning the management of the accounts. It's an endless list. But we would like to listen to how you feel about this project, and we will also welcome any contributors who are interested in this project to join us and build and take this experiment on together. And I'm welcome if you have any questions, and please also contact us. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to come back to the process of accepting new members. How do you make sure that the same physical person doesn't apply twice for a membership? How can this system work without decentralized identities?
Yeah, because you mentioned a physical person, so it's we could only in our current status we can only guarantee an account cannot apply twice. But the problem linking with a natural person, this can be solved that we actually isolate this problem apart from our project because there's like independent research on the identity issues apart. Yeah, so we basically just put it apart. Mm. Any other questions?
Did you get to this end of this experiment and realize it was a terrible idea? Trying to fit basically decentralized systems into not just any law, but Swiss law, which is incredibly conservative and arcane. And throw your hands up and realize that you were just creating software that implements Swiss law rather than decentralized systems? Was the conclusion at the end or in the middle of your experiment?
We actually started with the Swiss law because, first of all, we're based in Switzerland, and actually Swiss law that regulates the association or organization are generally quite welcoming to. I mean, there's not a lot restrictions. Do you have any particular perspective of
There seems to be just one fundamental issue, which is that law requires named people to be responsible parties who basically can be sued.
Yeah.
Whereas decentralized systems in that regard really try and do anything but that.
Yeah, yeah.
That seems to be a tension you can't really, grapple with.
Yeah. We try to find a middle ground in the way that we keep the management style in a decentralized way by enforcing this democratic proposal voting and decisions mechanism. But we do need this legal representative, which is actually the delegate in our particular experiment, to be to hold this liability of the association as it's required by the Swiss law. So it's kind of like we meet in the middle ground at the moment. Yeah.
Hello. I made my first experiments on the subject in 2016, and 2017 I made a company in Delaware because Delaware company law permits creating all kinds of contracts, of course including smart contracts. So I have to return to the previous speaker over there that you don't really need to have personal information anywhere in many jurisdictions because you could be sued. You could be personally sued if there is a limited liability company only if there's a crime. Civil matters, you have to sue the company itself. So there is not really a need for personal information in this sense because, well, if you make a crime, then it's your fault and you will be prosecuted. But if that's a civil matter, then the company will be liable.
Thanks.
Okay, so you talked about KYCing and whitelisting members. That doesn't prevent an illegal act or an act that results in an injury of the person. So where does the liability come? Is the DAO liable? The DAA liable? Is the president liable? Is the member? So where does liability lie in the Swiss view or in your opinion in this context?
If I understood your question clearly, because I'm very sorry that the noise prevents me from listening clearly. So the KYC process, so is that like mentioning, like linking the natural identity with the accounts? I mean, I didn't really hear your questions clearly.
That happens, who is liable? Is it the DAO? Is it the president who's KYC'd? Is it the person who made a proposal resulting? Like, well, how does the Swiss law view the liability of the DAA?
Yeah, so for example, actually the way we do this KYC-like process, it's like having a mini DAO because we use the whitelisters. We need a minimum 2 whitelisters to to do their check off-chain and then come back with their decision. And then this pool of whitelisters could be extended into 10, and then we also could adjust like at least 3 out of these 10 people or 5 out of 20 people, depending on the particular quorum that we require to reach this kind of consensus among these small mini DAO in order to allow the other members joining into our DA. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I just wanted to know if you thought of upgrade mechanisms or if you need to update the processes that are here. Can your system manage it? And if yes, how? Thanks.
If you look at our code, currently we don't have this upgradable thing written in code, but it could be done because right now a lot of things are hard-coded. just for the experiment purpose. But the upgradability is accomplished in a way that the smart contracts are linked in a library, and then the contracts, like the addresses, are linked in the way that could be exchanged, could be changed by proposals. So once the proposals of changing such library, like Tolly clerk, how to settle the status, so how to settle a proposal, like people agree on such change, that we can change the address to another library that hosts the logic. Yeah, so it could be done.
Just to take that a bit more crystallized example, for example, say that the DAO votes for changing the membership onboarding process, for example. How does that adapt to like this formalized process of, you know, it has to be whitelisted this way and that way? What if the DAO decides to change, or DA decides to change it to a bounty-based accession system, for example, or whatever?
There are things that could be updatable, and then there are things are not, unfortunately, because of the restriction due to the law. And then the structure and the mechanism of using the whitelisters and to allow people joining this DAA is unfortunately part of the thing that is restricted by law. Yeah, but for example, as I mentioned before, like the Tolly clerk and how we settle down a proposal, this part could change. Yeah. Thank you very much.